So I started a like a separate Facebook account just for like the political stuff because I realized that I was getting like way too into the weeds, and most of my just like normal friends who I'm friends with on Facebook don't give a shit about any of that stuff. So so I have a Facebook account that I post all of this stuff to as well, and like I'll still share it to my regular account because I do have some friends who do actually care about that, but I've tried to get away from completely spamming my regular account with all of this kind of stuff. And then
Yeah.
Twitter is just I don't like
Twitter's fun.
yeah, Twitter's fun. Like it's
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even really use Facebook. Like pretty much like I probably use MeWe more. Well, maybe not more. About the same as I use Facebook now. Because I have like multiple socials where I'll distribute my stuff up. But Facebook's like basically all I use it for is like promoting my show, and that's it. Because like I did the same thing too, where I had that like period of time where like I was like having problems with not problems, but it was just like it would be like arguments, and it was much more of a normie crowd because it was like my Facebook for that I've had for like since I was a kid, since I was in high school. So it was like I had all my friends, family, all that shit. So I mean, it wasn't as fun. So because you always had to be like, I can't really get too heated with my aunt, you know what I mean? Because my grandma might talk to my mom or some shit, like, and I still would just because that's just how I am. Because but I just it felt like it allowed me to, I don't know, maybe go on a deeper level. So I ended up making an alt. So like this name's a pseudonym. I've been pretty open about that. A lot of people. So this is a made up name. And so then that like I don't know, kind of opened my eyes. It was like more fun because I was able to like use it to like interact. But then Facebook got to the point to where it was like, dude, I was getting zucked like all the time. Like legit, I went on like Facebook, I think like a month or two ago, just like, and I think it was like within like I started messaging with my buddy just because I saw something that like caught my eye. And it was my buddy. I think I called him like a retard or something, just but like joking around, but like because it was like a buddy to buddy type thing. And like boom, they got me. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I haven't used this friggin' godforsaken app for like months. Come on, like have like one comment and you you hit me again." So I have a theory that the way the algorithm works is that like they once you start getting in trouble, they start watching you more, which makes sense. But like I got to the point where it was just unenjoyable. Like they were getting me for, and it wasn't even like I could if I put some like crazy shit up and it was like really offensive, like I'd be like, okay, whatever. I mean, like I think it's stupid you're pulling it, but whatever. I get where you're coming from. But like there was stuff that would just be like, there's nothing bad about this. It's just like mildly political, and you're like, nope. So like, yeah, I don't know, like that.
or stuff that's like blatantly, clearly a joke.
Yeah.
A buddy had posted. I've got a buddy that lives up in Canada, like around Winnipeg, and he had posted something that was like Canadians pulling a giant sled behind a truck and throwing somebody for a, it was something just dumb and hilarious. And I said, those crazy Canadians. And then I got I got that removed and got like a 2-day ban because I said those crazy Canadians. Like,
Yeah.
because that could be offensive. Like, what? It's very clearly a joke because of
Yeah.
the video. Like, I wasn't. How was that offensive?
Yeah, I bounced from Facebook when I like the straw that bounced that broke the camel's back or whatever was like I made a post. This is right around that time when all the weird election stuff going on, and like with like Facebook and stuff. And I made a post, and it was a Mussolini quote, and it was the quote was like I forget exactly, so I might be wrong. So don't anyone listening don't hold me to it, but it was like a um or was it fascism, it more accurately could be called corporatism because it's a merger of corporate and state or something, or public and state or something like that.
right.
And then they hit me with it, and it was like, for me that was like, for one, it's not even that bad, like this is just a historical quote, and like it was just so ironic, like really, like I'm because in a sense it kind of is calling Facebook out because it's like you guys are merged with state, like you're literally engaged in fascism. Like that's what fascism does, is blurs the line of the state and what's public, or you know what I mean, or what's public and what's private or whatever. So that one I was like, all right, I'm not using this other than just like promote or something, because I do have like I had a ton of connects in there. Although I don't know if they did some shit with your algorithm because now I get like almost no traction on Facebook, even though I had a ton of people on my Facebook who used to be popping, like because I kind of like went crazy with that account because it was my alt. Like with my first account, it was like I was a little more reserved because it was like it was for like family and friends and stuff. So, but yeah,
I think Facebook definitely does take action to like clock you or kind of scale back the reach that you have. Like when I first started doing this, I initially started out as just like short 10 to 15 minute like little videos that I would just kind of rant about something. And those would get 200-300 views on Facebook. And after a while, it started getting like severely, like it went from I was getting 200-300 views on a video to maybe 15 or 20, and like nothing changed. It wasn't like I stopped saying inflammatory shit or anything like that. Like the topics didn't change, the way I approached it didn't change, the videos didn't change, the way I was uploading it, like nothing changed about it. But all of a sudden, like there's nothing there. And
yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. It's, I don't know, and also for the Facebook when it makes sense to you, I bet you they have something that's like the more you engage with an app, the more it like extends your reach. Because like I mean that would make sense. It kind of subconsciously incentivizes its usage. But like, yeah, I do definitely think there's that as well. Like, I definitely noticed that. Like when I first started doing my podcast, I just came out of Facebook, and I had like a big old group that I was an admin of. Like I was one of the main admins, and it had gotten pretty big, and it was pretty like I had a lot of engagement, a lot of stuff was happening. Like it was already like branching off to separate chapters and stuff. And like I kind of like my podcast initially was to be kind of like an offshoot of it. And like when I first started, I was getting like literally when I first started, because most people when they first start YouTube, it's like or a channel or podcast or whatever, it'll be like, they have a handful of views. When I first started out, it'd be like a couple hundred for like each one. I mean, which isn't anything crazy. If for starting out, that's like really good. And then it like within like a couple episodes, like nosedive. That was right when they started like censoring. So I'm like, I just feel like they were like killing my reach. And it's like, I mean, not to say that like I deserve more. Maybe to be fair, maybe they got in there and they're like, this guy's just starting out, and he kind of sucks. But yeah, there's a lot of weird shit that goes on online. But
around that time, I think if you were just talking about the right trigger words, then they were killing your reach. If you're not promoting the corporately sponsored narrative, then they just knocked it out.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about none of that kind of stuff, just because I've talked about that stuff way too much, and I've had a lot of fun watching and kind of following along on Twitter and elsewhere with you and the Tower Gang guys and some of the like the crazy shit y'all do. Like it's hilarious and it's a lot of fun. And I pulled that clip from Josh's show where you talked about shit posting and the value of it. And I wanted to talk to you, like focus specifically on that, because I do think that that's something that gets a bad name, but if it's done properly, it can really be something that has a lot of value and gets people paying attention. And I mean, all eyes are good eyes, whether they're looking at you to criticize you or they're looking at you because they agree with you. If they're seeing it, there's always that outside chance that it's putting a thought in the back of their head that wasn't there before. So like, let's talk about shit posting. Like what inspired the Tower Gang thing?
Oh, the Tower Gang. That was started by Towers, which I mean, we weren't the first ones towering. Like we always joked we were the B team. And so like, because we had it was a whole like basically decentralized coordinated effort sort of like system that set up in these towers when it first like became like a phenomenon. And like when it first started with one group chat, and then it went out to other group chats, and then and it kind of spawned out from there. There was like a lady group chat, and like it was kind of like they all had contacts with each other to other group chats. That way you could kind of like sort of plan out things, but obviously it's like planned out in like a very ANCAP type way where it's like, well, if you don't, obviously no one's putting a gun to your head and be like, put that fucking letter in that tower. Like, so like it was more like people throw out ideas and be like, you want to jump into this? Not all right, whatever, cool. So like we started doing that. We were like the B team, so we were like the second group that came along. It was like we started talking within there, and like we just had really funny conversations because it was just like it's just a bunch of shit posters, but we're all also very like pretty like into theory and shit like that. So like we had like deep conversations, and there kind of sort of became like a little bit of a clique of people. And there came some people that like were obviously more apt to be willing to like have a public front kind of deal. Like I already had a podcast when it started. Like I've been like a month or two into my podcast ish. Maybe I'm like terrible when it comes to time. And then like Nick, for example, like he had his own podcast as well. But so like me and him were the ones who had our own podcast, and then we had a couple other guys that were like, been talking like, oh, we start podcasts. And like me and Nick were both kind of like, well, I mean, like we already have ours, and that's enough of a commitment. So like we'll hop on, when need be. So and it ended up being like Toad and Fat Dave, which most people know. Like those are the ones who like basically they're the guys for Tower Gang, and like it's like they're the inner circle, if you will, because it's like they're basically the ones that are running the podcast. Like for example, it just got monetized. They're the ones getting the money, because then we said that from the beginning. They were like, like unless it gets something to be like crazy huge, like whatever, like we're just there to help out and have fun and shit. Because we knew that come anyways, but like we're not gonna argue over $30. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like people think it's big money. Like, not to jump on another topic, people get really dumb about like grifting and shit. And it's like, dude, I've been doing this for a year, and I get like I've gotten to the point where I have a revenue out of this of like a gas tank and a half. Like, I mean, if I'm grifting, I mean, I'm not doing. I don't know. Like, seems to be, it's kind of silly, the grifting accusation. It's like,
see, that's an interesting topic all on its own, because I do work for Peddling Fiction, Lions of Liberty, Buck Johnson, Josh Smith, and then I help start up the Los Libertinos podcast and do most of his production work.
The Pluma Verdes guys, yeah.
And then
I'll plug them, even though they're not my sponsor. Yeah, they seem to be sponsors for all the fucking guys at like this level ish. But go ahead.
And then there are a couple others that I do work for. The Paradox, which is Eric Larson. He has a medical focused show, and then his wife, hers is a not for profit organization that's focused on grief for families who have lost a child. And hers is called Always Andy's Mom. And like, so I'm working for 7 or 8 different, different shows. And so I'm actually making decent money off of it, because all of them pay me a little bit, but like nobody who's doing a podcast, unless it's like Dave Smith or Malice or, some of those like huge names, like 90% of the podcasters that everybody's familiar with and loves their show, they're not making a living off of it. Like they're just getting a little bit. Like there's this huge misconception that podcasters are just like raking in money hand over fist, and that's not even remotely close to the truth.
Yeah, I mean, shit. Like, for example, Pete just finally got to the point where he said he's like able to support himself, and I don't know his financial situation, but I bet you he's still, even then, probably like making things a little bit tight kind of deal. And he's a huge name in this movement. And then I've looked at I was a Patreon member for the Lions of Liberty guys for a while, so I've seen their numbers. I mean, like I'm sure they have revenue coming in from other places as well, but yeah, no, it's nowhere near like it's what people think it is. Like, yeah, and even then, I bet you, like, say, even with somebody like Dave, I mean, I don't know what he makes, but I bet you, like, if you ask a random, casual podcast listener what they think he makes, it's probably way higher than what he actually makes. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think he's probably doing well, but still, yeah.
Right. I think he probably does better off of some of the other stuff that he's got going on, not just the part of the problem. Like there's probably a lot of other things that he's involved in that may be connected to that, but that's not like what's actually bringing it in, would be my guess.
Which that seems to be thing. So for those listening, I mean, you probably can agree with me as well. It seems to be the way, if you are trying to make even a little bit of money, it seems to be diversifying and kind of be what you want to do. So like, obviously the most of my money I get from like Patreon, but I'm about almost 850 subs. So I'm like 150 subs from being monetized, but so then there'll be another little thing. And then like I'm on Odyssey. So there's something there. And then I think I just got to where I can like start putting ads on my audio podcast. So there's another thing. So all the little other things, they kind of all feed into each other. And then, like say, for example, like I'm also on, I don't know, it all feeds into each other. So that seems to be a thing, is to not pigeonhole yourself too much, as I would say to people that are like, if you're trying to do that. So, But even then, definitely, if you're in it for the money, there are other things you can do. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be a partial reason to do it. When I first started doing it, I knew it'd be a small stream, and I'm all for. I like the concept of having multiple revenue streams. So this is something. Like I wasn't gonna do anything else at this time. I fucking like I have a wife, 2 kids. My wife works nights, so like right now my wife's at work, and I'm at home with the kids. So I mean, like they usually go to bed around 9ish. I mean, on weekends it's usually a little bit later, but like so I would be doing nothing. I'd be reading or maybe watching TV if I wasn't podcasting. So I mean, it was like, well, why not? So here I am.
I was kind of in a similar boat. Like I've gotten to the point where I really don't watch sports or any of that other stuff. Like I just kind of work on this stuff because like in the time that I would normally be watching TV or watching sports or doing something, not productive, just sitting there rotting my brain out. Now I use that time to talk to cool people like you or work on shows for the different guys and like pull clips and then I'm getting exposed to all kinds of content from all kinds of different because that not everybody has the same opinion, even though a lot of them can be closely aligned. When I'm working on Eric's show, The Paradox, he has very different opinions on vaccines and different stuff because he is a medical professional. Like that's what he does for a living, and so he sees a different side of the world than what most of us do, and his reasoning may not be the reason that he feels the way he does may not be the same as what somebody else who has the same opinion, what their reasoning would be. Like it's interesting to see all the different like perspectives and takes on everything, just from exposing myself to all of that. And I mean, I feel like that's way more productive of a use of my time than sitting around watching a basketball game or something. Like I found out about all kinds of books that I never knew of, and I love to read anyway. So it gives me, stuff to read and learn even more.
No, I agree. I mean, I definitely think there's a place for leisure time, but it is also like, I don't know. I mean, for me, I guess maybe people have different amounts of leisure time they need. For me, like I like to have less, but I also like to enjoy this stuff because I do have good conversations, especially like Tower Power is just like shooting the shit with the homies. Like I don't know. I mean, this is still fun. I mean, it's also sort of semi-productive. We're throwing around ideas, and it's kind of funny. I was thinking while you were talking on that, like Gornowski's. I don't know if you've listened to him at all. Mm-hmm. His theory on like how we're mimetic creatures, and I don't know if he necessarily framed it this way, but being as we're mimetic creatures, being like, if you don't know what mimetic means for the listeners, it's kind of like copying. So like, kind of how you learn is by watching other things. And so because of that, it's kind of like the biggest disagreements are among those who are like very, very similar. It's like only a tiny bit of difference amongst each other. And so that's why we argue like this amongst us, because like we see one small little inerrancy, not quite copying the rest. And that's where we have disagreement. It's almost like we're trying to hash it out to be like, get them to be somewhat to the same. I don't know if you necessarily framed it that way, but yeah, it is, which kind of is a discovery process to a sense to where like you're figuring out what's right or closer to right, if you will. So, but I mean, it's all fun. I think we got a little sidetracked, but we were talking about how Tower Power got created, right?
Yeah.
And, from I think we were touching on that. We kind of, it's just started a group chat. And then once we got the group chat, like they started talking about doing a podcast, and then ta-da, we did. And like, we kept the same energy that we had in there. And the towers were like, I mean, if you don't know what towers are, it's where you like that. One of my famous ones is Dies in Hell Pork Chop. They did on Megan McCain, and I don't remember what she posted, but you hit it with a tower. And so someone puts the first letter and put like a D, and then someone comes along and puts an A. And then that way you have like a thread that's like spells out a word. And the beauty of it is it kind of creates like a mob effect, because like Twitter, it kind of like blows up notifications. It's like, it also ups it in the algorithm. So it's kind of almost like a hack. So it's like, yeah, you may be like, in a group chat of 20 to 40 people that have roughly an average of like 500 to 1500, followers. But it's like, now you just essentially collectively made yourself into like a super account, because you just like boosted the algo to where it's just like, it's out there. So it's a good way to like, I don't know, kind of create chaos, and it's just fun. It's so cool because in a weird way, it is such an example of a lot of our theories. It's like just so decentralized and like I don't know, it's beautiful in a weird fucked up way. But yeah, I mean, so God, I forgot I had a point. Yeah, no, fucking, and from there we started doing the Tower Power show, and we were kind of keeping that same energy. Initially, we were like more focused on towers, but they kind of died down because we still do them occasionally, but now it's more sparingly. So I feel like that kind of makes it so they're higher quality towers when we do. But yeah, we kept the same energy where it's just fucking with people. And it's weirdly, I think it was Dave was actually talking the other day about like I think it might have been on the Timcast thing where he was talking about how Trump kind of like had a hack to essentially where like I think they were giving him shit about the Rosie O'Donnell thing or whatever. Like, oh, you called women. Someone said, I can't remember when the exact when this happened, but he was like, they were giving him shit, and they're like, oh, you said women are disgusting or whatever, blah blah blah. He was, no, that's only Rosie O'Donnell, and it's like so, but people love that. And like the energy of like, no, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to double down, especially if it's something that you're like right about. I mean, like, like, because he's kind of just like, I don't even know like what they're referring to him saying that. I have a feeling it was probably something out of context. Probably was him making fun of Rosie O'Donnell. Like, and they tried to frame it as he's making fun of women. Now you need to apologize. And he's like, no, fuck that whore. So like, it's that same energy. And weirdly, people, it works. And it, like I don't know what happened, but there's been a period of probably the past decade where like that has been like the key to success for so many people. The opposite, the inverse of what I'm saying, where they'll be like, look what you said, like some random shit out of context from forever ago. You probably don't even remember saying. You need to apologize. And like the natural reaction for so many people for so long has been like, oh, well, I'm sorry. Like, and then they'll be like, they might be like, well, I don't even remember saying that or whatever. Now you're already in the spot caveating. You're like, and you're like, you need to realize you're not dealing with an honest actor. The way they came at you is all wrong. You have they're not entitled to your concession. Fuck them. So like, if you have that energy, like, and I'm not saying like if you did something entirely fucked up and wrong to not, but if it's something like that, where it's clearly someone is trying to got you, apologizing never works. Like that is, they saw a weakness and now they're going to attack. It's not going to be, they're going to be like, oh, okay. Well, thanks for apologizing. Oh, he's back in good graces now. Go ahead and, he can go back on the news or whatever the hell. No, you're screwed either way. So you might as well like go down a boss if you even go down, because even when you do go down, like you look at people like, it seems to be in these major people they have tried to like fuck over, like the Alex Jones and stuff. Most of these people come back stronger. You know what I mean? Because it's like you just shoved them down and you just created like I don't know, you just like you really just showed like you put on display how this person will not back down and how they're like, this dude is about his shit. Like, so maybe you should check him out.
I mean, for whatever you might think of Ben Shapiro, he effectively built an entire franchise out of people trying to cancel him for having opinions that they didn't like.
Yep. And that's kind of where we're not even at 30 episodes in Tower Power. And like, we're already at like 1.5 subs and we didn't do any weird advertising shit. It was literally just us doing it. And like, we got a couple good guests from like towering them or some shit. So we did kind of use that effect a little bit, but it never was in this like weird cringy way. We're just like, hey, that dude's cool. He'd be fun. We should fucking tower him. Or we would just sometimes straight up ask like, I know that I don't even know enough about the story around it, but we got the dude, the fucking God, what was he? He was over in Afghanistan. All the shit went off. You know that like one meme guy, the guy with the gun, the white kid. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know many of the details, but we got him, and because he apparently is a big meme story right now. Everyone's all about him, and all we did was just like, hey man, go on Tower Gang, and he's like, oh, okay. So, like we've been legit trying to like on Twitter, been like sort of semi joking around, emailing or not emailing, but tweeting at some of the like Taliban members to be like, hey, come on Tower Gang. We don't care. Like, but yeah, no, we have that energy of like, we're not going to back down. And that weirdly has worked because we've had multiple like, scandals, if you already, and every single one we handled with like, no, fuck you. Like basically like, that's the overview of what we've done. Like, I don't even care if you're right. Like, no, like it's like, for example, there's the one Josh Smith thing that he came on and they took out of, well, I mean, I guess it wasn't even necessarily out of context. It was just a stupid joke. It was a silly throwaway line about him being like, being black because he has so many kids or doesn't take care of them or some shit, like something stupid.
Yeah.
And like it was just a silly, stupid joke, but it was like, no, like fuck you. Like we're like, who cares? And I don't even remember how we responded, but basically everything we doubled down, and that weirdly seems to work. It like, and it kind of, that's shit posting in a way too. That's basically what shit posting is. So we took that shit posting energy and made a show out of it. And well, I always say that we try to weave between pee pee poo poo and big brain time. So like we have fun, but then we'll like somehow bring it back to like theory or something smart. Like we kind of go in and out of that, so it's not entirely dumb. And we had some episodes that are more dumb and some of them are more smart, but we try to weave in and out of that. And weirdly, I feel like this is all just like kind of a perfect parallel example of shitposting, essentially. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what shitposting is, really.
I feel like you need a good blend. Like you need a healthy mix of shit and just dumb stuff. Because if you're so entrenched in the super serious big brain theory stuff all the time, that can start to wear on you eventually. Like, we were talking about earlier, the personal time for stuff, and like you should also utilize your personal time for some stuff that or allows you to just kind of turn your brain off for a little bit sometimes. Like it's a good thing to do. My guilty pleasure is Mark and Remzo's Second Print's comic podcast. Like my son and I listen to Second Print Pod and read comic books and stuff like that all the time. Like it's really fun, and it's something to. Plus, a lot of the episodes and stuff they do like covers comic events from when I was like in my youth, really starting to get into comics. So it's stuff that I remember from being a kid, and then I get to go revisit it with my kid, who's the same age that I was when I was first discovering it. And like it's stuff that you need that outlet at some point in life.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I do the same thing when it comes to like reading. I what I'll do is I'll read like a smart fucking book, and then the next book I'll read will be like a comic. And then I kind of like, because you do need to give your brain a little bit of a relaxing. You can't just always do the super big brain stuff. I'm the same way. I'm comics. I've listened to that podcast too. It's a really good one for those listening. Like, you definitely should check it out if you're into comics at all. I was really excited when they finally covered Swamp Thing or fucking Alan Moore's run of Swamp Thing. Like, that's a good run. I just this past weekend went to Comic-Con in Orlando. Well, it wasn't Comic, it was MegaCon, but same fucking thing. Me and my kids went, so it's cool to be able to do shit like that. I saw Ryan Otley, who's the artist of Invincible. I got his autograph on my favorite issue, which I don't know if you've read Invincible, but oh dude, you fucking should. It's so good.
Sean and I watched the Amazon Prime series, and so now literally every time we walk into the comic book store, he goes straight to it. He's like, all right, we need to get this. I'm like, chill out. We're here for other things today. Like that's on the list, but not on today's list.
Dude, but it's good. I will give you though that they were pretty true to it. There were some only minor differences in the show. The biggest one was like the biggest probably change really. There's probably two big changes. The like his girlfriend, the black chick that's like this annoying SJW bitch. Like she was the most generic blonde bimbo white chick you could think of in the comic. Like literally, like she was a stereotype of just a generic high school girlfriend. Like they didn't really work. They didn't really do a lot of character building with them or their relationship. She legit, you can definitely tell from the show, she is totally just meant to be like a metaphor for women's
power, feminism.
It's supposed to be the generic hot chick in high school, and then he comes to find out like, oh, it's not necessarily the generic hot chick you really want. It's the other girl. Which is kind of weird because Eve is a fucking bombshell. So it's like, I mean, she's also the hot chick, but I mean, like the ones that's generic, cheerleader, blonde type, whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I would almost prefer that to what they did with her because they just made the other one an annoying bitch. I would almost rather be insignificant than annoying, if that makes sense, So, but whatever. And then the other one was like the fight. If you watch the series, the fight where fucking Omni-Man like murks the whole like their version of the Justice League / Avengers. Like in the comic, it's way more one-sided, just like done. So it's like you thought that they got murked bad, and they're like, no, he fucks him up in the comic. It's like there was no fight. Like it was just done. Like I don't remember the details. I think there might have been one or two that like put up a little bit of a fight, but no, it was just game over. Which I get why they didn't do that, because it's not as fun to just watch like a one-sided just destroy. And even then, it still came off that way, sort of in the show. That like they didn't really have much of a chance.
That was funny with the series on that one. So I watched the whole thing, and then I figured it was appropriate for my son, or maybe not appropriate for normal 12-year-old, but he and I watched base. Stuff, so he would be okay. Like he would handle it well. And but I knew I had to leave to go to work that afternoon, and so we would only have time for one episode. So we watched the first episode, and then it gets to the end of it, and he just kills everybody. And then my son's like, wait, what just happened? I'm like, we'll watch the next one tomorrow. I've got to go to work. He's like, no.
Yeah, those suck. Yeah. Yeah, me and the kids, like another like guilty pleasures. Me and my kids watch anime. I got, for some reason, I don't know how, but they got into anime, which, because I have daughters and I don't know what, like, because I was a generic, like comic book stuff like that. So somehow anime seemed to be the one thing my kids kind of were drawn to, which I never was like a huge anime guy, but there's a couple that I liked as a kid, but like I still enjoy them. So it was like something I could connect to like my daughters over. I don't know if it's just something about anime has more of appeal to girls.
Yeah, my girls.
I don't know.
My girls are really into anime too, and not any of the ones that I care for. Like they're into really weird animes too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I can kind of like get behind some of those, but I know there are weird animes. But like, for example, my youngest is into Naruto, and they're both into My Hero Academia, which I fucking love that show. That show is awesome. But yeah, so it's cool. I gotta watch that shit with them, and yeah, I mean, have a little bit of a brain break. But
on that topic, have you were you into the? I don't know how old you are. Were you into the original Evangelion series? I've
heard tell of it. I never really got into it. No.
I'd say they had the new one that just came out. So they did like a rebirth series. They did it in movie form, and they did 3 movies in the like early to mid teens, and then the newest, the finale came out last week. And so Sean and I sat down and we watched the first 3, and then we'll watch the final one. I'm not sure. We'll probably try to watch it next weekend whenever he's back. Plus it's his birthday weekend, so that'll be. But he was really getting into it, which I was kind of pleased. I thought he might think it was really weird, but which it is really weird. Not but all anime is, at least to some extent, really weird.
It's a little weird. I mean, because you also got to think there's so much cultural differences. Like, there's always that one weird pervy character in most animes, and like, but I don't know, anime is like, especially like the fight ones, they can get pretty hype. Where like I mean, yeah, you're like, it's stupid, like like energy blast, but like you get into it, and you're like, holy shit! Like some of the fights get pretty wild. You're like, oh my god. Like, yeah, it's especially like a good one. Like My Hero is like really good at that. Like
Hunter x Hunter, they do some pretty impressive and intense fight scenes.
Yeah, my oldest is really into Hunter x Hunter for some reason, which I mean I can't really get. I mean, I don't know, it's okay. I mean, it's one of the ones like, 'cause she's the one who's more girly, so she's into some of the more weird ass girlier animes. And like, but that one is one I can get behind. I can watch some of them, but it is still kind of like, it's okay. I don't know.
It was one of those that it would be on like at 1:00 in the morning on Adult Swim or whatever it turns into, middle of the night. And so I'd wake up to go to the bathroom and see it on. So like because I would notoriously forget to set the sleep timer on the TV before I went to bed. And so I'd wake up and I'd watch an episode of it, and then I'd turn the TV off and go to sleep. So like, it was one of those that I never put a whole lot of time into it, but the episodes that I saw were always entertaining.
Yeah, no, that's one of the shows like surprise you though, where it'll be like, it lulls you into thinking it's very goofy, and then like sometimes it'll be brutal as fuck, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. Like this one episode I watched with my daughter where like some dude rips another dude's heart out, and you're like, it's been all like goofy and campy and stuff before that, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, where did this come from? But yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily for me, but it's a decent one, and it's one I can watch with my daughter. My younger daughter, me and her have better taste. Like we watch like Dragon Ball Super and shit, And we watched some of the old Dragon Balls as well too, because that was the big one for me growing up was Dragon Ball Z. But we watched the original Dragon Ball when he's like a little kid, and then we watched Dragon Ball Super. And yeah, which I mean, Dragon Ball Super is pretty fucking, not gonna lie, especially towards the end. Some of the like the tournament power stuff was fucking insane.
Yeah, I've been trying to convince the girls that they need to watch Princess Mononoke, and
I've never watched that. It's always been one I've been meaning to though, because I heard it was so good.
It is.
I just haven't got around to it. You know,
and it's one that they would like. It's one that the girls would really like. I know that they would really like it, and I just can't talk them into it. I'm like, y'all claim to love anime so much. This is the one you need to watch, and you won't do it. Come on, like, cooperate with me on this one thing. Like, nothing else in life do you have to get on board with, but this one is the one. Eventually, I'm gonna con them into it.
Yeah.
So, we keep getting derailed off of into more fun topics off of shit posting. So, okay, what is the best way to go about with a shit post? Because I'm not good at it. Like, I don't know. I think I come across too serious. I don't know how to be that goofy online. Like,
when I think of shit posts, I think of it specifically in the context of Twitter personally, because I think it is a matter of like how. Honestly, I feel like it's kind of maybe not necessarily the intended purpose, but the incentives drive it to that way when it comes to Twitter. So I'm not even necessarily saying shit posting is ideal everywhere. So like Facebook, I mean, maybe it'd be a little bit different definition for shit posting there. Maybe there's an advantageous way to go about it. But for the most part, I see Facebook as a place to have like discussions, really. Especially now. I mean, back in the old days, before they got so bad about censoring, there was a little bit more of a setup to where it could be like shit posting, to where like, I mean, there you could throw out some like crazy shit, especially if you like have friends and family that you know will be triggered. Facebook, I feel like is much more normie, like central. So it's like you could throw out depending on how normie your fucking crowd is. Like, say on my friends and family one, I could just probably put out like a milquetoast taxation is theft meme, and I'd probably get some butthurt. On my like later one that was like my all after that, like probably not so much because I set up my crowd to be a little bit. But even then, like even with that crowd, like I mean, I can't think of anything that come to mind. But you throw it, it's more just about you're throwing out like meat and just like kind of fucking with people, and you can kind of pick and choose to engage in the comments because Facebook does lend itself more to like a long form like debate. So like I would do that. I would throw out shit that I knew was gonna like, you know, piss off someone, and then like once they go for it, I'd be like, well, let me tell you why the fuck you're wrong and why you're stupid too. You know what I mean? Like the whole like Rick and Morty thing where it's like you're wrong or you suck and I can prove it mathematically or whatever the hell. But Twitter is more like it's more set up for quick interactions. So it's more just about like throwing out shit. And then like what I like to do, I literally just saying in the group chat today, I was like, the way I use Twitter is I piss off someone and then I just signal to my gang of autists and then just walk away. Like, that's how I use it. Yeah, I mean, is my mic still coming through? I just think I just bumped my shit. Is it good?
Yeah, everything sounds cool.
Good. Yeah. But no, that's how I use it, and that's I think how you kind of should use Twitter because. And I was just talking to Ace the other day too. And like we recorded an episode or recorded half an episode. His internet shit out, so I'm gonna have to do some editing later and fix it. But and we'll have to record the other half later. But
hey, I know a guy who does that kind of stuff. You know.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, I might. I think last time I had this issue, I legit like crowdsourced. I just went on Twitter. I was like, anyone know how to do this? Because I still haven't. I'm like almost to 90 episodes, and I still haven't gone around to like figure out how to editing or anything like that. So like I've had to do it like once, like actually maybe twice, but one time was way more difficult because I had to like mash up files and shit. But the one time I think I had to like cut out like a little bit of a dead air or some shit. But God, fuck, I lost my point.
Oh, you and Ace were
talking. Yeah. I was talking like with Twitter, I feel like you have to have one extreme or the other. It needs to either be like you basically don't engage at all. Like for example, I like legit just before we got on here, there was some can't remember the post, but it was some post that was like you know, if you have the ability to and you haven't gotten vaxxed and you're responsible for killing people. And all I did was post no. And like and And like I kind of did that because kind of like as a little bit of to put a little bit of bait on the hook. And then I knew my plan already in my head is as soon as she like comes back, depending on what she comes back with, but most cases, she's probably gonna like try to hint at me for elaboration. And I'm gonna be like, I have a meme already lined up, ready to go. It's gonna be like, no, I will not explain myself because you're retarded and I hate you. And that is a perfect encapsulation of how to one method of using Twitter. The other method is the Ace method. Like I feel like you have to like pick one extreme or the other for it to work. And Ace will just like he has tireless pay, like he will just debate with someone for forever and go full fucking autist and like just like so it's almost like a game of endurance or a game of like quick, you know what I mean? Like so it's gonna be one extreme or the other, I think. And I mean I guess I wouldn't call that shit posting. Like, that's like legit engaging. But yeah, it's gotta be one or the other because the in between is just like and it's not really set up for engaging like that. It's not really efficient. And what the fuck? Oh, all right, that's weird. I just had a weird notification. It's a new computer and just some weird ass notification pop up. My bad. That's super professional. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if I kind of lost point of the point, but that's kind of, I think of it in that sense. So it's that first, like that quick interaction. You're almost just signaling to your group to be like, hey, look at this. Like, it's almost like, I've said before, it's like galvanizing your allies and identifying your enemies, so maybe not even enemies is the right word. It's just more just like shouting out to the world, like, hey, this is a team I'm on. Are you with me? And then like, it's kind of it's an informative process really. From there you can act upon it, So.
I don't know if I agree or disagree with the enemies term because I don't know that they're enemies, but at the same time, like some of them that I'd have engaged with, they're definitely enemies. Like there's, I had one the other day that it was one of those posts about how everybody should be required to get a vaccine and everybody should be required to wear a mask. And I said, my position has and will always be, if you think I need to have a vaccine that badly, you are more than welcome to come try and make me take it. And then it turned into some dumbass that was like, oh, they're going to mandate it. I was like, okay, like that's not at all what I meant. Like I've literally driven for half of my adult life without a valid driver's license. Like clearly I care what your mandates are. Like that's not what I'm saying. Like you have to physically come and stick it in my arm if you want me to take it. And then it turned into this dude just going like full autist in the wrong direction. And so I kept playing for a little while, but it just got it got too stupid even for me to take seriously and keep trying to play, because like I'll play for as long as you want to play, but once you've gone to the point of stupidity that I can't even keep track of why you're making these points, like I got to check out. And that was where it hit with that one. But another one I had a lot of fun with, and I posted that one to Facebook, and it was like so I guess I have had a little bit of luck with that, but I'm just not good at it. Like I don't know how to do it deliberately.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess more just like I just got to the point where I just don't care. And like I don't know. And the beauty like with Twitter is it's kind of like I get to sort of fuck with people and then throw it out. And especially the bigger your following gets, the more you can have that effect. Because like I will like, for example, like that one with the chick that I said no, I immediately retweeted and didn't like her post. So that way I can like, I threw it out to my followers so they'd see it. And like, so that they see I just said no. And it's kind of like and so it allows them to gauge. It's more just like I'm just drawing attention. I don't know. There's different ways to go about with shit posting, but yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I feel like it's a process to facilitate self-segregation, and I'm all about it. So like, because I do think that's kind of the path of the future. Like I kind of want to drive people into their, philosophical, fucking ways one way or the other. It's kind of a whole remnant concept, or it's like, like trying to identify ours. But at the same time, I'm also trying to take those that have a certain other path and, I mean, drive them that way. I mean, like go, like you go be over there. Like, and I want that to start over time, within the decades or centuries to be a little more like geographical as well. So where it's like, and even then with maybe not even necessarily that with a lot of like the blockchain and like stuff like that type technology, you can kind of have like, we can see in the future, like something along the lines of like a panarchy where it's like, the person next to you has agreed to live under these terms and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's way out in the future, but like, I do see in the future where it's going to be like you have these like areas of authoritarianism and areas of more liberty. So like, I do feel like we probably may not or see technically anarchy as some people would like to see, but it's still like I don't see shit in like a binary. I see more of it's like a spectrum. So it's like you might have an area that has more liberty and this area has more authoritarianism, and you can kind of, in a sense, like have a market type thing to where it's like you can kind of, if you want to go live in this like, technocratic hell space over here, if somehow that appeals to you, cool, go over there. I don't give a shit. Like, and I can be out here in the woods. I mean, like, I don't mean woods. Like people are gonna like, straw man me and be like thinking I'm talking about like the Unabomber or some shit. Like for example, where I'm at, like I live in an area that's like everyone has like an acre and or more. It's like deeded out that way to where you have it's like every bit of land has over an acre. And yeah, it's more country, so it's all like a bunch of country dudes. Like today, my lawnmower broke. I had to fucking like my deck belt went out, like, and so I got like halfway down my lawn, just texted my neighbor, and he came over and did it. And then that way I don't have this goofy ass lawn. And so like this is I feel like I have more liberty than someone who lives in like a city to some extent, and I want that phenomenon to continue. You know what I mean? Because I think I don't know if you've heard of Andrew from Popular Liberty. He has this archetropism idea, and he kind of sees, he kind of applies like the laws of thermodynamics to like power. And I'm kind of like essentially kind of hacking like what I think is in the future we should be trying to hack that to where it's like, okay, cool, yeah, where there's a constant amount, like it's almost like you have of power. So it's like we can concentrate that power in certain areas, and that will then allow other areas to have more liberty. So, and if anything, I feel like especially I feel like the more you create a larger contrast between liberty and authority, the more apparent it becomes. So if we get to a point in decades, centuries from now to where it's like, there's some that's super authoritarian and there's some places super libertarian, it's going to be way more obvious. So it's not this like weird, like, ambiguous type thing to where it's like, so you kind of to some extent are more wide-eyed, clearly accepting what you're going into. It's kind of like instead of it being a cult that tricks you into a big cult, they're like, hey, I'm a cult, and do you want to join this cult? Okay, I'll join the cult. And if some idiot wants to join the cult, have fun. I mean, who am I to stop you? And it's like in this future scenario, you're to some extent more believing. I mean, I guess you apply like you could say those that grew up within it are going to be a little bit more within the cult. It's kind of the whole like idea of like religions that drag you in. But
well, I mean it's kind of like the idea of the Amish communities. Like you grew up in it, but you have the opportunity to leave, and more often than not, even after they go out and see the world, they go back because like there's community there, and there's something to that I think we may overlook. But yeah, like it's kind of like that concept. Like you have the freedom of association, and you can choose to leave, and a handful do choose to leave, but the overwhelming majority don't, because like once you've got that community and you kind of have that structure, it is a nice thing. And that I actually talked to Andrew a couple weeks ago because I'm doing a little bit of work for him on some stuff too, and I basically I work for everybody, like other than you, so we need to work on that.
Is that what this is? An elaborate ploy?
yeah. That was the whole point of this, was just to try to rope you in.
This is a pitch that you're not even going to post.
But so like I have talked to him and I've listened to his stuff a lot, and like that's people really do crave a power structure of some sort, and that is a scary idea for people, because like for me, I am very anarchist in kind of the way I approach life and stuff, but that's because I kind of consider myself my power structure. Like I have almost a farm in my backyard. Like I've got a nice big garden, and we've got chickens and goats, and we've got a neighbor up the hill that whatever we don't grow, he grows, and like we gave him some squash and he gave us some cucumbers, and like we have a tight little neighborhood where we all get along and we do cookouts together, and like if I need somebody to mow my yard, they'll come mow my yard. And, so we have that, that community, and we don't really need, anything else. Whereas a lot of people, like, they rely on something else. They don't have that built in.
Yep. And therein becomes the market value of power. So, which there is something to that, to where I think and I've been saying a lot, we need to stop thinking binary, to where it's like, and we also need to stop having this idea that, like, everyone's going to magically just like be like down for liberty. I do agree that's a superior product, but for one, I feel like too many of us are focused on marketing a product we haven't created yet. So, like, I've talked on before, anyone knows about me, I'm more of the agorist bent. I'm not, I've said before, I had Dave in my show, and we talked about how, like, when it comes to tactics, you have to be kind of humble and understand that you may be wrong. But I'm kind of the opinion that essentially, like, even if you're going to utilize politics as simply marketing, essentially, like throwing in a message, it's kind of like, for me, it's like, yeah, but we haven't created a product. I mean, we have, but not so much. So, like, what you're doing in some extent is kind of like sort of creating the product. Like, you need to be kind of like, creating that, like, the agora. You need to be creating the market, living your values. And then that way you can be like sort of creating a product to market. So, like, and I mean, not to get too deep into that, but fuck, I forgot my whole point. I had a second point too of like, shit, fuck, what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought.
Creating the market for libertarianism, and, building that, like talking about the need for the power structure, and the fact that there's not, the Libertarian Party, and most of the libertarians in their messaging, they offer the ideas of it, but they don't offer the, like they've put together the blueprint for how it's going to work, but they haven't actually built it. So, like,
shit, I had a second point.
And if you've done so I used to be a project manager, and the most entertaining thing that I saw in project management was, we had this guy that was an engineer, and he built this like really impressive spout that was it was a grain loading facility. And so the grain would come down this belt and would hit this spout and fill the barge. And when he showed up with the spout, I said, there's no way that's going to work. He's like, oh, no, look, the math on this is da-da-da-da-da. I was like, yeah, but you've got a 30-inch spout and you're trying to feed a 36-inch belt into it. Like, you're creating a choke point. He was like, no, but the math says that, it'll handle this volume. I'm like, okay, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Like, fire this belt up and run some grain through it. And sure enough, 36-inch belt hits the 30-inch spout. Everything chokes up at the head and it blows out the top. It's like, it's not rocket science, but we as libertarians, we're that engineer. Like, we've got the plan, but we haven't put it into practice. And anybody that says, there are flaws in your plan, we're like, oh no, but look at all of this. Look at the math. Like, the math says that it'll work, even though there's no real world application for it working. And so we need that real world application of it working, so that people can see it, and also so that we can have the opportunity to see where it fails and what can be tweaked and fixed with it.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. God, I had a second point I was going to do, but I still can't think of it. I'm going to think of it later. God, it's really bugging me. Like, they kind of tied into each other, but whatever. Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I do think that's what needs to be done, is like, I think we start creating, which, I mean, to be fair, I mean, Dave did like a Bitcoin episode. I'm not hating on Dave at all. Like I said, we talked about, he could be right. I mean, I don't fucking know. When it comes to tactics, like, I feel like we're a little bit dark. Like, for example, like on our episode, my episode with him, we were covering an Amish state with Rothbard, and like Rothbard, kind of like the last paragraph of it kind of goes into how, like, he kind of basically says, like, we kind of don't really know, like, tactics wise. And like, so yeah, I feel like that, to me, I even said in that episode, like, I feel like that's like a white pill, because that's like work for our generation, at least something for us to do, which I feel like we too often forget, that like there is still a place for us, and this is that place. And like, because we're too like, hey, we have everything, we have all the answers. Like, no, we don't, but we got to work on those. And so I do think that's why we actually need to be more graceful when it comes to like differences of, application of theory, essentially. Because we get so much into like, are you paleo or are you this or are you that? And like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, and I think there's some case to be had to like, I think we need to start just engaging in practice, start fucking doing. And that way it's kind of like you create a market effect of like what works. And also you're kind of creating the product. But but yeah, he had a Bitcoin episode today. And that was my whole point is getting at, he had a Bitcoin episode where that's kind of like the future. So like shit like that. I mean, I'm guilty too. I haven't gone to Bitcoin because I'm really not a tech guy. So but like I've done multiple episodes, but I'm still like shit. It's just so daunting to me because I'm really, it took me forever to do a podcast just because I'm retarded when it comes to like tech. So, but I mean, you're probably more of a tech guy considering as you work for all these people. But yeah, shit. I've been meaning to get into like crypto for like ever. It's just, it's still daunting to me.
I haven't really gotten into Bitcoin or any of the other cryptos. I own a little bit of a couple like smaller ones.
I have some library.
Yeah, like I own a little bit of a couple smaller ones, but I haven't gotten real super into it just because at some point the entire monetary system is going to completely collapse, and I don't have a high level of confidence that cryptocurrency is going to be what replaces it. Like I feel like there's going to be some pretty dark times where it's much more feudal and less currency based and more goods and services based. So I just haven't put a lot of effort into getting into it because I can disappear off into the woods and take care of myself and my family without having to really deal with society all that much if I needed to. So
yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's still it's like I think that I think it's going to exist no matter what. Crypto, I definitely do see as a future because I think it's going to exist no matter what. And I think you're not entirely wrong. At the same time, even if we do have a collapse, the internet's still going to exist. So crypto is still going to exist. We're still going to need a medium of exchange. So it's like, it may be more because it's like on that episode, they literally were talking about how like Cuba is like had like how they're using people like the collapsing nations have actually shown that a lot of those places use crypto more because it allows them to, instead of having this currency that's trash, it allows them to kind of like divert it into something that's a little bit better. And it's going to exist either way. But I do get what you're saying that like, if you're next door neighbor, if you have eggs, it's more valuable than if you have crypto or whatever. But at the same time, you do still kind of need a medium of exchange. So, and not everyone's going to be like, trading eggs. I know that's like the common example for everyone who likes to go full on back to the land is eggs. Because that's going to work. Eggs are probably one of the best examples of a currency and like a shit like that.
Eggs are so easy too.
Yeah. So, and like, I can see if we had like a crazy collapse scenario, maybe for a period of time, maybe the internet would be down in like a crazy collapse scenario, but it would come back eventually. So it's like, I don't know. I do see it's the future, but I get where you're coming from, where it's like, your chickens producing eggs is like, that's much more, tangible than zeros and ones on a screen. But I don't know. And if we're to the point to where we don't have crypto, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, we're fucked anyways. So
yeah, I mean, that's the perfect society for me. Then I really can disappear into the woods and just do for me and my own. That's to some extent in the back of my mind, I've always been kind of preparing for that. I guess I started getting into more anarchist type stuff when I was in high school, and then I kind of went through my neocon phase early on in college, and then went back even harder into anarchist, and now I've softened a little bit in my older age and getting into the libertarian side of stuff a little more. I always was aware of it, but I never really got on board with it. Just I get it was all great ideas, but the anarchist side of me was a lot stronger, and so now I'm getting a little more back into like the libertarian side of stuff and trying to be a little more involved in the political the political field of things and be a little softer on that topic as opposed to just hardcore, anarchy. But it's always in the back of my mind that one of these days I'm disappearing into the woods and never coming back out.
I guess I kind of see it like a mix. Like I'm more of the agorist bent. I do think that, like, I was just thinking this in my head, that it's like I see the future. Like if we were ever to achieve an Incapistan, like probably within the next century or something akin to an Incapistan, it would be more like something along the lines of Amish meets Cyberpunk. You know what I mean? Like to where it'd be like, yeah, I would feel like in that society, the American dream or the dream would be, having a couple acres and a small farm. Because I actually think that does lend itself to, like it's more decentralized. You're able to like go to your neighbors, get whatever. But there is a little bit of utility to technology as well. So I do see like a merging of the two to where it'd be like, you'd have, that like communities where they're making shit more, within themselves. But at the same time, they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to trade with Bitcoin or I'm going to do this or that. Because I mean, there's a good medium of exchange. Technology is still going to exist, even as like rural doesn't mean technology does not exist. Like I feel like those are just like, for some reason in our heads, people tend to put those two things at odds, as rural and technology, which I mean, I can kind of understand, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's the way I see it. Because I actually think like had we had like an infrastructure to where, let's say the American dream was, like I said, to have a couple acres and a small farm. If that was what the American dream was, and I'm not saying everyone has to have that. It's just that you would have more of that. Like that's what people strive for typically. I think that we would have done way more better during all this COVID shit, because it would just been a blip. You know what I mean? Like because there were so many like supply issues and stuff like that, and we're probably gonna see more of the repercussions as time goes on, but it would have been like a nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, even if it was this legit fucking like pandemic, you could have just like kind of communities could have gone within themselves more and been a little bit more like, put up their own fucking NCAP borders or whatever. And you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be as reliant on outside sources. You'd be far more decentralized, Whereas like say for the pork production, that was the biggest thing. Is bacon was like fucked for a while because it was like all the bacon comes from a few major corporations, so or most of them. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you just have one little fuck up and all your stuff goes to shit. So wouldn't it make more sense to have way more small farms? Like then you don't have this issue.
Because the local farm raising hogs and the local butcher who knows how to process meat and do all of that can be way more efficient in when something like that happens for their community than what the big companies are going to be, which was very, very clearly proven out. Yeah, and that would be like the ideal thing. Kind of piggybacking off what you were talking about, like if everybody who just wanted to be a part of the system could go live in a big city and be part of it, and then if you didn't want anything to do with that, they're just like, okay, here's 2 acres out in the middle of BFE, Kansas. Like, go away and we'll leave you alone and you leave us alone. And like, okay, yeah. Like, how many people would sign up for that and be like, yes, we absolutely will move off into the middle of nowhere with our 2 acres, and you fuck right off and leave us alone, and we'll fuck right off and leave you alone, and we can just be divorced from it. Like that, I feel like that would be way more popular than what the average person probably expects that it would be. And obviously the government would never do it because it would probably be way more popular than what they could withstand.
I think to some extent that's like I've been kind of getting at, implying is I think that's what our future probably, I mean, I'm kind of predicting sort of it's going to look like. Because I think like we do have a failing nation. The power, is like it's waning. And I think as this fucking behemoth is dying, it's going to start, drawing back towards its areas of power, which are gonna be like cities and stuff. So I think in the next like century or two, we're probably gonna see something akin to like city states returning, and I think it's gonna be much more like a technocratic type shit, to where it's like essentially we end up with like hundreds of little North Koreas within fucking the United States, but they're like super fucking technocratic and everything's like, you know what I mean, like way more. I don't know, it's like a cyberpunk North Korea, basically. Well, so like, I mean, that's kind of how I see it. But at the same time, then you'll have people on the outskirts that like, maybe we'll have this idea that like, oh yeah, we're all America, but it's kind of this loose thing. We're like, yeah, but no one really fucks with us out here.
Well,
Like,
and to that point,
you know?
like kind of something that Andrew's talked about a couple times on like with Pete and different shows is like talking about Rome, and Rome got overextended, and if you transpose the US map onto Europe and look at it, like there's not a I mean there's some difference, but the US government, centralized out of Washington D.C. is kind of like the Roman power centralized out of Rome, and Rome was way overextended with all that area of Europe and Africa and over into Asia that they were trying to cover. The landmass that Washington D.C. is trying to cover is not terribly unsimilar, and they're stretched. And to this point, like the only thing holding it together has been, having governors that were on board. But if you see more DeSantis's and Kristi Noem's and like Iowa's doing a lot of stuff with at the state level to kind of nullify, and a lot of states are like putting forth nullification measures. Like as it starts to kind of break down like that, which another thing I've been saying since high school is we are Rome. Like we are on the same trajectory as Rome, and even accelerating it to some extent. Like so it's gonna happen, and it's probably gonna happen in a very similar fashion. And then like what they talked about with the fall of Rome, like it just became all of these governors or generals that then became the king of their province and took things over. And so I don't know if we end up with kings all over the place, but like, there's probably a very real possibility that when it falls, it'll end up kind of splitting itself up like that. And I'm all for it.
I've been saying for a while that I don't necessarily want secession or even nullification, but I want like a soft secession, soft nullification. And I think that's going to be something we start seeing a whole lot more often. Maybe they do formalize it sometimes where it'll be like, we formally aren't going to do this law, or we formally aren't going to do this, or maybe there will be a state here and there that is like, we formally are like, we're breaking off. But I would actually far prefer to be what I'm saying with a soft secession or soft nullification, where it's like, say with like Florida for the soft secession point, where it's like, okay, well, you're doing all that. Well, no, we're going to do what we're going to do. And maybe they don't pass a law or whatever. And, I know there's probably some fucking person out there, someone that's like, well, you can't do that because, well, it says here on this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, but at the end of the day, if they don't do it, they don't do it. So I don't,
right.
Like you can be like, well, there's words on paper somewhere, but it's like, but if they don't do it, they don't do it. Even
that's like me and my driver's license.
So like, that's kind of how I'd like to see it going, is like to where places just start, more like just doing it, or, like say more of the rural areas where it's like, maybe there's some like gun law or some shit where it's, but nobody really cares. If I live out in the country, I swear to God, I hear all the time, I hear fucking what sounds like bump stocks. No, like I no one fucking cares. You know what I mean? Like it's like federal, like I know they're federally legal or whatever right now. No one gives a shit. I hear guns going off all the time, like because I live out in the country. No one cares, and it's like I doubt any cops going after them. So in a sense, that's kind of like a smaller example of what I'm saying. That's kind of a soft nullification. Maybe more of an individual level or community level or whatever. But if we can start expanding that energy more and more to where it's like, there are laws, but I don't know. They only kind of come up if we're really trying to string someone else up for some other shit. You know what I mean? Like some chomo over there, whatever, we'll fucking get him for this other shit he's got that he's not supposed to do. But whatever. We don't really care about everybody else. Like who cares? Like it just becomes this like afterthought. And which is like, because I do feel like them to touch on again, everyone like thinks that we're just going to have this magical Incapistan and it's going to be like, this is anarchy. But it's like, I feel like it's far more likely it's going to be that like, I don't know, say your example of living out in the woods. Like, yes, that is basically, for the most part, anarchy. But even then, technically, you could be like, well, you live within a state. It's like, but the state doesn't really fuck with me unless I start like killing people or some shit. Like, they're going to, for the most part, leave me alone because I'm not interacting with anyone. Like, so I mean, that's kind of energy that I would like instead of like a formal, because then in some extent, formalizing it just sort of is almost like a state action.
Declaration of war to some extent.
Yeah, and also it's like, yeah, there becomes this dicey, weird shit. Whereas it'd just be better if you just kind of like, well, it's not really doing that, you know? Like, I mean, yeah, maybe we're not formally in a separate country, but we're basically behaving as one. You know what I mean? Like that would be what I would like to see. So, yeah,
absolutely, I would love that. Well, we ended up talking very little about shit posting and got into all kinds of other fun stuff, but it was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. Give you a chance to plug everything you got, and then we'll continue the conversation about me coming to work for you.
This is I'm Jose Galison of No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel. I'm also on all the major podcatchers. I'm on Odyssey as well. Yeah, if you'd like to give me money, patreon.com No Way Jose 2020. I think that's all my plugs. Oh, Twitter, at Galison Jose. That's it. That's all I got. So
thank you very much for joining me. This was a lot of fun, and we may have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Thanks, Jose.
Mm-hmm.